All right, we are live. What is good, y'all? Day 2 of 30, streaming every day this month, so you better tune in, all right? Last night we talked about how status is important when you're out there dating, okay? Not to mention how a lot of Asian dudes are very feminine these days, okay? So if you missed that post, then go check that one out. It's the last one on the channel. And ironically, this post came up and it talked a lot about the root issues of why Asian guys show up super effeminate in their day-to-day lives. All right. I thought it was a pretty good breakdown. There are some things in there that I agree with, some things that I don't agree with, but we're gonna break this all down. There was a lot of upvotes on this post, so it obviously resonated with a lot of you Asian dudes out there. So all right, so let's dive in. I'm gonna share my screen. We're gonna go through the post. I'm gonna give you guys a little bit of my thoughts, but we're gonna go through this together, okay? And then from there, we are going to add in some of my 2 cents, and then we'll close out the stream. All right. I'm not going to keep it too long because I know time is valuable, and we only have a certain amount of hours in the day. Plus, I need to get in a workout before the night ends, so I want to try to get through this as quick as possible. All right. I just want to make sure you guys can see the screen here. All right, perfect. Okay, so this is a Reddit post that I saw in Asian masculinity, and I thought it was pretty relevant to, some of the things that I talk about. So let's break this down, okay? OP says, becoming a functional man in Western society requires deprogramming everything you learn from your Asian parents, okay? Asian parents deserve to be blamed for 90% of many learned behaviors that prevent Asian men from succeeding in American life. In particular, a lot of these behaviors are insidious and come from an overbearing Asian mother and a submissive father. Good point. So these include grades are the end all be all. An Asian boy simply has to get perfect. I don't know why you put boy, an Asian man, okay? Simply has to get perfect grades and then will receive all the praise and validation he wants. Don't worry about the girls in dating now. Worry about it once you become a doctor with specialty and with a profitable practice and you're 37 years old. So there's some truth in here. I mean, as an Asian man growing up myself, studies was top of mind for everyone. And even if you are playing sports, like my parents put me in sports, but aside from the sports, if I wasn't bringing home straight A's, I wasn't going to be allowed to play sports. So obviously those things, those factors took precedence over anything in my life, whether it be friends, going out, playing video games. None of that mattered unless I was getting good grades in school. So yeah, it did put a lot of pressure on me, and it did make me focus on school, which is not a bad thing. I think a lot of dudes out there should focus on school until they're old enough to have their life figured out, and then yeah, the bitches will come after. Okay. You need to always subconsciously seek approval from the family. Want to start boxing, want to get into hip hop, want to date a Hispanic girl. Every last thing you do has to be approved by your parents and then by the overall family. You feel the uncontrollable urge to ask them to approve of your taste. Here's a hint, they won't. So that is true. I mean, I grew up always seeking approval, seeking permission, making sure that everything that I wanted to do was okay with the family until it wasn't, and then I had to rebel. And I suggest a lot of you, if you're listening and you feel like you fit into this category, yeah, you definitely have to rebel a little bit, okay? I mean, our parents only know what they know, and a lot of it is outdated. And this also leads into your relationships in a way as well. All right. If you're constantly seeking approval and you're always unsure whether or not the path that you're going to take is a good one, it's going to turn you into a very passive, submissive dude. And you don't really take charge of your own life, and you don't make decisions based on the things that you think need to be made. Right. And so you hesitate, you stutter step, and you actually don't do the thing that you're supposed to do, which is, comes from within, not from what other people think. And how this bleeds into your relationships is that you become a people pleaser. Okay. You start um, making sure and caretaking for other people's feelings and other people's thoughts, and just always, like I said, stutter stepping your way through this, and not being able to really be confident in your own ability to make decisions. Okay. um this guy writes in this third point here: we are taught to avoid conflict. Someone's mad at you, avoid eye contact and look down. Your teacher is accusing you of something. Again, this is what I was talking about, being passive. This extends to Asian households that beat their children. All right. So the beatings are worse if you fight back and defend yourself, which is true. Whenever I was getting the tumps, and I defended myself, the weapons would start coming out. Okay. So yeah, that explains why Asians generally don't defend themselves when attacked in public. They're bred to think if they fight back, it will get worse. So yeah, you got to learn how to stand your ground and learn how to fight back. But I'm going to break that down a little bit deeper after this post here. All right. So this is a big one. All right. Asian families are obsessed with producing skinny men. Obviously, a lot of Asian parents do fat shame. All right. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that it's a good thing. You're fat, you've gained weight. The concept of muscles and bulking is entirely foreign to Asian parents. I don't know if that is the case now. Maybe it was a lot, back then. But um, I'm just trying to think of, my parents didn't really care. My brother got jacked as soon as he got out of military, and he got pretty big when he got into university. So I don't know. I think it was encouraged, if anything. Unfortunately, it is the number one reason why Asian men are generally not seen as intimidating. We are generally skinny and insist on being that way. Yeah, I mean, I always preach about, getting yourself in the gym, putting on muscle, getting strong. Not for the girls, but for yourself, because it leads into confidence and all those other things, right? But not to mention, like, if you do happen to get yourself into a situation where you're forced to fight or defend yourself, let's say, you definitely don't want to be weaker than the other guy. Okay. You obviously want to be skilled over being strong, but you want to be skilled and strong, which will, that'll be a double whammy when you're sitting there, having to defend yourself or fight somebody. Okay. Um, this last point here: Asians have a materialistic culture. All they care about is money. However, what they don't understand is money is a byproduct of passion and individuality. The richest individuals on the block are weirdos who figured out a new way to redesign toilet plungers. Okay. The discouragement of individual interest combined with the dependence on and often uninformed parents' approval generally leads to mediocre outcomes. So here's the thing. All right. Money is an important thing in the world in general. I don't know about Asians having this materialistic culture. I could see a lot of, like, that's a pretty bold blanket statement, because I know a lot of Asians are who didn't grow up with a silver spoon in their mouth. They're pretty humble, and all they really care about is, putting food on the table and having a roof over their head. So I don't know if that's for the most, for all of Asians. I don't really think that this really. I don't think it really suits all Asians, because I think it's assuming that all Asians are rich, and if they're rich, then they dive into, like, the materialistic culture. Like, I could see, like, certain Chinese, like Hong Kong parents who have a lot of money. They come over, they're wearing designer, making sure they rock the newest Mercedes and stuff like that. Like, I could see that. But for most Asians, they're not really, I don't know, they're not that rich. So how could they be materialistic? But what I do understand what he's trying to say is that, money is an important thing, and it did get pushed a lot in our family as well, like making good money, but it wasn't for materialistic things, to be honest. But I do see how in some cultures they do push that. Certain Asian cultures, I'm saying. This is really important, and I think I'm going to break this down a little bit further as well, because it goes, a lot of people don't talk about this, okay? And we're going to talk about it. But he says here, all these mindsets create an incredibly docile and nearly effeminate Asian male race that simply won't do basic masculine things. basically what I was saying last stream. Like defend themselves and stand up for their opinions. And for the most part, I blame this strongly on Asian mothers who seek to control her child and end up cannibalizing his masculinity for her benefit. So we get a lot of flack as dads, right? Like guys in general, like we get a lot of flack for being, what is it, a passive submissive father who wasn't really um I guess present throughout parenting. He was just more or less it was more or less left up to the mom. So we don't really talk about the tiger mom aspect and how that really does ruin a lot of kids, okay? Not to mention the sons and the daughters, okay? So but a lot of that gets, what is it, swept under the rug, so to say, because we live in a society where it's wrong to blame women for certain things or blame women for becoming, super narcissistic, egoistic, right? And then having that um, trickle down onto their family members and stuff like that, which is a big topic that no one really talks about. Okay, it ruins a lot of families, I'm telling you. Okay, so I'm gonna go over some of the top comments here, and then we'll go into post discussion about like how to deal with all this shit. Okay, because I know this is gonna resonate with a lot of you guys out there. I know a lot of Asian guys that probably grew up in a household with either like um, your dad wasn't in the picture, or he was just very passive. Your mom was basically calling all the shots. Okay, and also the dynamic on how it affects the way that we choose our partners as well too. So last stream I was talking about how Asian men normally prefer to date Asian women, and I think it's because there's this silent untold, I guess there's like this undertone where a lot of our lineage, a lot of our legacy is based on men, right? It's based on our shoulders. It's on our shoulders to, continue on that legacy. So, for example, let's say I chose to date a white girl and we had a kid. Well, that kid is now mixed blood, and that mixed blood is not necessarily a part of the Korean lineage or whatever that was created, like thousands and thousands of years ago, let's say. Um, so I think it is a lot on Asian men's shoulders to date within their own race. Whereas like in China, because of the one child policy, a lot of females, okay, weren't really highly regarded in families, and not to mention they were probably discarded as well too. So there's a lot of female Chinese women being put up for adoption and all this other stuff, right? Because like they're seen as like, they can't carry on the lineage or whatever. So a lot of the gatekeeping they had for Asian women to date Asian men wasn't necessarily there, because again, like they are going to lose the last name, right? The last name usually carries on through the man, so on and so forth. So a lot of that again is put on our shoulders, and I think this is why culturally Asian men just seek out Asian females, or they date within their own race more often because of these kinds of things, right? There's just so much more pressure on Asian men to do this kind of thing. All right. This is the top comment here. He says, the elephant in the room, Asian females are often left to be very free to date who they want. And even this leads to encouragement from their own self-hating mothers to date white men, no matter how mediocre they are. Asian men are discouraged from dating white females and black females. SMH, you can't make this up. No other group does this apart from Asians. Literally every other group has it the opposite way, where the men, there isn't. Literally every other group has it the opposite way, where with the men, there isn't opposition to them dating out because they carry their names. The women, conversely, are discouraged. So no wonder the Asian community is divided when half the Asian females don't want anything to do with Asian men and love making Asian men look emasculated. So that's a pretty fair, I guess, what am I trying to say? I guess it's a fair wrap up or roundup of what I was just talking about, how basically all of the the pressure is on Asian men to continue on the legacy and the lineage and so on and so forth, which bleeds into, Western culture, which happens like when you bring your family over from the East, there's not much pressure for Asian women to date within their own race, okay? Because again, the last name is not going to get passed on through them. And yeah, so I think this is why they see a lot of less gatekeeping in that regard, right? As a parent, you would I think, even me just thinking about it, like if I was like as a parent, I wouldn't want my only son, let's say, to go outside of the race because you know, it's on him, right? Um, to continue on the legacy, the lineage, the thousands of years of history that, it took to bring him to this point. But I think a lot of when Asians come over to the West, they start to lose grip of that. Okay, that sense of family, they start to lose a little bit of that. And so I would agree that there's less gatekeeping of women, but also less gatekeeping of men on who they choose to date. Um, the OP says Asian males are hyper aware that if they date white, I think he meant Asian females. Asian females are hyper aware that if they date white men in a Western society, they can move up in the hierarchy. They want this kind of upwards mobility for their daughters, but they're also fully aware that Asian men generally cannot do this, or they'll implicitly think to themselves that there's no way Asian men can be attractive enough to date black females, let's say, and will carry that bias over into their sons. There's not enough discussion on how toxic Asian mothers are generally responsible for incubating effeminate Asian men. Okay, so that was what I was talking about. Okay, um, so that is pretty much this post. I'm not going to go into all the comments here. I think that was good enough to talk about a lot of the stuff that um, is important for Asian men to, I guess, ponder through as they embark on this journey called life. So I'm going to close that out, and I'll give you guys a little bit of my thoughts on, what I think moving forward Asian guys should do. So some key points I think this OP made was that a lot of Asian guys are effeminate because of their household culture or whatever, their upbringing and stuff like that, which I agree with. Okay, I think our parents only knew what they knew. They didn't realize the dynamic of bringing their sons and daughters over to a culture that is basically run by white people. And if we understand that, this causes a lot of confusion, whether or not Asian guys should assimilate or they should hold on to bits of their culture and just be Asian while they're in the West, right? There's all this confusion. So there's dudes who, hold on to their culture, and there's dudes who let go of their culture, right? You'll see a lot of guys either being whitewashed or they're blackwashed or whatever, what have you, right? They fall into gang culture and stuff like that, hip hop culture or whatever, and they lose a little bit of their Asianness. And it almost seems a lot like, I think, these wokies will call it like self-hatred and stuff like that, but I just think it's assimilation. I think guys have learned to adapt into whatever environment that they're in, and they had to just survive. Okay. But with that, I think a lot of, like, when you do get older and you realize, okay, shit, this was my environment, this is how I grew up, this is the things that are important to me now. What is the most important, like what route should I take in order to, rectify some of the wrongs that either my parents have done or society has done, or what have you. Okay. So I think one of the biggest things is men, especially Asian guys, we need to stop being so emotional. I think we need to stop thinking with our emotions so much and feeling so much, and rather just do things. Okay. And not to mention, learn how to be assertive. So obviously we're not going to fight back unless you have to stand your ground and self-defense and go into self-defense mode. Okay. So this is why I always say, like, learn how to fight. Go, you should get into some street fights, if you're a younger guy, and learn how to basically defend yourself, because there are dudes out there that are gonna fucking try to test you. Okay. And you don't want to step down and be all like submissive, like I was at KFC the other day, all right? I was just getting some chicken, and a fight broke out in the parking lot, okay? And as I was walking into the store, one dude runs back into his car, grabs something, and puts it behind his back or something like that. And he was talking shit to this Chinese guy. And this Chinese guy, instead of like, what is it? Stepping up to this guy, he cowered back into his car, and he was looking at me and telling me to call the cops. And I was like, call the cops for what, bro? Like go deal with your shit right now. This guy's like clearly in your face, right? And it just goes to show you how passive some of these dudes are. Okay, he didn't know how to handle himself in that situation. Like if it were me, if a guy ever ran back to his car to grab something like a knife or like a weapon or something, you best know that I hope that he would use it. Okay, because for me, it's just the way that I was raised. I like not raised, but like just the things that I've been through in my life, and I've seen all kinds of shit that when somebody does something like that, that like that's like it's on. You know what I'm saying? Like if you started doing that with me, like I hope that you would take that out and hit me with it, because the next thing that would happen after that would just be lights out, or just I don't even want to say. But let's just say that this guy, if he wasn't so, I guess, tail tucked between his legs kind of thing, he would learn how to fight back assertively. Okay. Maybe he would have taken out his phone, recorded how stupid this guy was looking or whatever. Right. Like protect yourselves in some sort of way. Like, let's say he did have a gat, you know what I mean? Like pull out your phone, man. That's the only protection that you have at this moment. Right. Don't like, you know what I mean? Um, or just or use the power of your words in order to break this guy down, right? Like anyway, I just think a lot of guys need to learn how to fight back assertively without using emotion, and know how to handle their business. You know what I'm saying? Like don't get other people involved and bring them into your danger. Just learn how to be a man and fight back assertively. I think that's the most important thing. Okay, so get in the gym, get strong, learn to fight, learn some sort of like, you know self-defense, whether you go do Muay Thai or Jiu-Jitsu or Krav Maga or whatever the case may be. Learn how to box, right? Throw some hands. Be ready to throw some hands. That's the point I'm trying to make. A lot of guys like don't know how, they've never been in a street fight before, so they don't know what it's like in those, I guess, life or death situations. Okay. Another thing is, I think a lot of dudes who, I guess, seek approval or permission from their parents. That is a big thing that is going to bleed into your relationships, because what happens is you're gonna become a people pleaser, and when you become a people pleaser, um, frankly, like it's self-sacrifice. Okay, and you're gonna end up resenting your decisions and regretting your decisions, because you're not really doing it for yourself. You're doing it for the approval, or in hopes that somebody will like you. Okay, like if a girl doesn't like you for you, and you have to constantly seek her approval, like that's you're in a wrong side of the relationship. Okay. It's very feminine to act that way. I think as a guy, you just need to stand on your business, and who cares if she doesn't like it? Okay, if she doesn't like it, she can get the hell out, right? And that's just how you gotta behave in these relationships. And the funny thing is, like, a lot of guys think like, oh, that's gonna piss her off and she's just gonna leave me. If anything, I've been told by multiple women that when a guy draws his boundaries with her, like, she actually likes that. She gets turned on by that. And the reason being is because most guys aren't like that. Every guy that she's dated in the past probably was like, okay, yeah, sure, babe, yeah, you can go out with your friends and have a good time, and yeah, have a good girls' night out, call me when you're home. Like, most guys are like that, as opposed to being like, no, bitch, you're not going out tonight. Like, no, you're not gonna go out with those friends, because those friends are bad influences on you, right? And guys think like when you say those kinds of things, she's gonna leave. And if she does, then she's not the one, bro. Like, you got to be okay with that. You got to be okay with standing on your business, okay? And setting boundaries like that. But most of the time, girls actually need that in their life. They need a dude in their life because they know that the decisions that they make are clearly emotional, and they might not be the most rational decision or logical decision. And so, you as a guy, if you can stand your ground with not just your parents, but with your girl, um, it's just gonna be better in the long run for you if you're gonna be um, trying to, I guess, develop into a man, a high value man. Okay. So stop people pleasing, stop seeking approval. All right. You're your own man, you're your own guy. Your parents they're not gonna outlive you. So you need to be okay with the decisions that you make. All right. Because you're gonna have to live with them. All right. Not your parents. So stop with that shit. Um, but also like listen to them. Like if it's within reason, okay, and your parents aren't if your parents are telling you to stop drinking all the time, I think that's a good way to listen to them and not drink every weekend. Okay, but if they're saying things like, "Oh, don't go out with these girls or whatever," like no, that's your decision to make. Okay? So stop people pleasing, all right? Another thing that I think a lot of guys get wrong and it stops them from, you know, I guess leveling up in real life is they hold a lot of resentment towards their mom or their dad, let's say, because of all this shit, right? So we just talked about how our parents, whether they beat us or they forced us just to focus on school or they weren't in our life, like our dad was like he was passive and he wasn't really in our life, and our mom, was this like controlling evil whatever tiger parent. um what stops you from getting on with your life is you hold this resentment towards them. And because you hold this resentment towards them, you have this pent up anger and frustration that just needs to get to the surface and you won't let it. And I understand that a lot of guys don't like to, what is it, deal with their emotions, and they'll just like push it down and bottle it all up until it's like, they're a ticking time bomb and they're ready to explode. I think one of the biggest things that a guy can do is to just forgive your parents. All right. They only knew what they knew. They tried to focus on, raising you, putting a roof over your head, putting on some clothes on your back and food on the table, that they weren't really understanding the changes here in society and how things were kind of shifting for us, right, as Asian men, and how that like the way that they brought us up wasn't preparing us for the actual real world. Okay, how to deal with men, how to deal with women, how to deal with authority, how to deal with like, social situations or even work situations, right? A lot of this stuff was like, making us pussies, to be honest. All right. Like for me, I kind of like on a hindbrain level knew that what they were telling me to do was actually gonna make like pussify me, because I used to hang out with a lot of like, you know, drug dealers and fucking gangsters and freaking, dudes that were really about it, okay, and serious about like life. And so if I were to bring that pussified attitude to these dudes, I would just get run over. I would just get stomped on. Okay. And so you got to learn how to step up and stand up for yourself, and I learned that at a very young age. Don't get me wrong. Hockey did a big number on me too, because, growing up, I was the only Asian guy playing, ice hockey, and I'm getting called chink or fucking gook or whatever, and like getting the slanty eye treatment. And then I was just forced to fight them, right? So that if they ever did say that to somebody else, like, yo, just know that I'm not the guy to say it to. You know what I'm saying? Like, I will fuck your ass up. And so I got into a lot of fights because of that. Um, but it did teach me a very valuable lesson in that, as a man, you should never bow down. You should never tuck your tail between your legs and be a pussy. Okay. If anybody does come up to you and starts talking shit, you better believe that you're gonna be fucking ready for that, okay? No matter what the situation is. Like, for example, that guy going back to his car to grab something and putting it behind his back. Like, whatever that situation was, you gotta be confident enough that you're gonna be able to deal and handle that situation no matter what the fucking scenario is, okay? So I say all that because I think a lot of dudes still grow up with a lot of that resentment, and again, that shit bleeds into your relationships, and the girl can see right through it. And when you become emotional, it it's like an immediate, like, attraction killer for her. All right, she immediately like does not like the faucets turn off, basically. All right, she does not get wet. She hates that about guys because she is that way, and she is not obviously a lesbian. All right, she doesn't want to date another female. She wants to date a man. And if you're not that rock, you don't have I'm not saying that you have to completely get rid of your emotions. You just have to be aware of the emotion and not react to it. That's the point I'm trying to make. And anger is one of the strongest emotions for men. And anger, where does that come from? Right? Resentment. And a lot of that, like I said, is deeply rooted in the way that you grew up. Okay? So learn to forgive your parents. They only knew what they knew. Okay? I guarantee you, once you start to forgive them, um, it frees up your mind, it frees up your heart to do the things that are important for yourself. Okay, it gives you more space, more gaps in the way that you think, the way that you respond, all these things. Okay, it gives you more and more leeway to do the things that you actually want to do. Okay, and it gives yourself some space to listen to the thoughts without being angry. Okay, and you have a clear head, no brain fog, and you can make way better decisions that way. Okay, so fuck, man, 32 minutes, that's too much. That's too much. I'll keep this stream pretty short. Like I said, I don't want to hold back. I want to give as much value as I possibly can, because I'm not asking for a single cent in any of these streams. Okay, I think a follow, a subscribe, a like goes a long way. It helps get this message out to other Asian dudes that are kind of in this scenario, trying to figure shit out. All right. So yeah, man, I think a lot of you guys could use some of this knowledge and apply it to your life so that you guys can become the men that you actually want to be. All right, without any barriers in your life, without any freaking roadblocks that are going to stop you from being that guy. You know what I'm saying? I want you to be that guy. All right, because once you are that guy, I guarantee you, like, the money comes, the women come, and pretty much like everything else comes. Okay, um just trust me on that. All right, so yeah, learn how to fight back, stop seeking approval, stop people pleasing, forgive your parents, and just know what it is. All right, money is important. Okay, regardless, passing down your lineage is important. These kinds of things that our parents pass down to us, you know are important. So not everything that they did was an L. All right, and yeah, so just look at everything on the positive side, because that's what men are supposed to do. We're not supposed to be negative. We're not supposed to think negatively or be angry and think with emotion. We're supposed to be more logical, rational, and positive minded. All right, that's what masculinity is. All right, boys, I see Rich in the chat. What's up, bro? Anyways, I'm gonna end this stream here. And then tomorrow, you got to tune in for another topic. But again, it's going to be Asian male focus. So if you're an Asian male, shout out to you. You got this. All right. And it's your boy, Rob Bass, signing off. All right. Peace out.